Welcome back to Infinite Dendrogram. Today's video will be a little bit shorter than the other ones. I'm only going to read chapter 4 today because I am a bit busy today, but we'll have fun. We'll get through it. Chapter 4, Tomb Labyrinth. The royal capital Altea, Paladin Ray Starling. After running away from the Fountain Plaza, we went out on a large road surrounded by shops on both sides. Alright, we both want to become strong. Our best option would have been to level in the hunting grounds surrounding the capital, but the current situation doesn't allow that. The player killers are still active after all. If we wanted to have our revenge on the player killers, we'd have to level up in Noz Forest. But with them still being there, we'd end up getting PK'd the moment we left the capital. But that's why we'll go to the last available hunting ground that my brother told us about. The Tomb Labyrinth, correct? Yeah. Tomb Labyrinth. Out of all the hunting grounds surrounding this capital, it was the only one that was inside it. It was a great maze-like dungeon that extended below the capital's graveyard. While my death penalty had been active, I'd taken a look at the walkthrough wiki and found out some important things about it. First, it was an underground dungeon with a theme and a set of monsters that changed every 5 floors down. Every 5 floors down. Second, the deeper you went, the stronger the monsters became. Third, the lower floors were swarming with monsters, so powerful that they put demi-dragon forms to shame. Fourth, the monsters in the upper floors were weak, about as strong as those appearing around the capital. Fifth, the walkthrough wiki's volunteers had confirmed 415 floors so far. The most important point was the fourth one. In the upper floors, we newbies could level without worrying about getting killed by players. Normally, the other beginners would completely flood it, but that won't happen here, right? Yeah, most of the other beginners should be unable to get in. Tough world, isn't it? Seriously. Once we remembered the reason why the other beginners couldn't enter, Nemesis and I heaved a long sigh. After dinner, we arrived at the graveyard where we could find the Tomb Labyrinth. As obvious as it might have been, the graves here were Western style, not Japanese. We were surrounded by countless tombstones displaying the names of the deceased and the years they had been born and died. It was a large graveyard, so there was a map at the entrance. It showed that the Tomb Labyrinth was quite a distance inside. There was even a guard room for the soldiers stationed there. Making our way to our destination, we walked through the graveyard. Gotta say, this unfamiliar sight of a Western graveyard at night is pretty creepy. So I guess thoughts like that will only get Nemesis to make fun of me, huh? This? She didn't respond. There was no expression on her face. In fact, she was making an active effort to not display any emotions. It's gonna be our first battle since coming back from death penalty, so she might be a bit on edge. Nemesis. What is it? Nemesis spoke so clumsily that I could almost hear her voice creak, like the mouth of some rusty old doll. It's nothing. I see. I wondered. Is she on edge or just tense? I can't tell. Well, I don't mind if she's on edge. We just recently revived after all, but man, this graveyard is really grim. Well, nighttime graveyards weren't lit up by anything, so it was only natural for them to be grim. It was a perfect place for one of those generic horror movie scenes in which zombies crawled out of their graves, banded up in an army, closed in while losing parts of their bodies. Right after I pictured a horror scenario, Nemesis took hold of my hand. I could feel it shaking, and when I looked at her face, I saw nothing but anxiety. Oh. I see how it is. Are you afraid of ghosts and stuff? She didn't respond. Instead, she simply looked away. Guess she is and doesn't want to say it. Nemesis always spoke in a proud manner, ate a lot, and was slightly arrogant. Yet she was afraid of ghosts. Despite us becoming closer, I still didn't have a good grasp of her character. Yeah, if you're afraid, why not just change your form right now? Okay. Still holding onto my hand, Nemesis transformed into a greatsword. For some reason, I could feel her becoming more composed. I guess her form has an effect on her mental strength. Keeping her psyche safe comes at the cost of making me look like a weirdo who hangs around graveyards with an unsheathed greatsword in hand, but whatever. I'll just go to the entrance before anyone notices. I finally arrived at the entrance to the tomb labyrinth. It took me about 10 minutes, which spoke volumes just about how large the graveyard was. Well, there was a large labyrinth underground, so it's only to be expected. And since I was near the entrance to a dungeon, no one would tell me off for holding a weapon. The gate to the tomb labyrinth was made of stone and looked really sturdy. There was a soldier stationed right next to it, and he quickly noticed us. Master, are you wishing to explore the tomb labyrinth? You need to have a tomb labyrinth exploration permit to do that. A tomb labyrinth exploration permit. This item was the very reason why no beginners were exploring the tomb labyrinth. It was a possible reward for quests of difficulty level 3 or a random drop from boss monsters. They were being sold on the player market too, but no one went for an average of 100,000 lire. It wasn't an amount an average beginner could easily procure. Basically, this was a harsh beginner's hunting ground that required the players to pay a kind of toll. Pay the troll toll. Gotta pay the troll toll to get in. Luckily for me, I had the leftover money I'd gotten from selling the demi-dragon worms drops. So, before going to this graveyard, I had bought my permit. I'd even finished filling it in and was actually making it effective, so I was good to go. When I reached for my items and dug for the permit with my left hand... Oh, you're a paladin, aren't you? Oh, then there's no need for that. Please go inside. He moved away from the gate without having me to show my permit. Excuse me? Oh, what about the Tomb Labyrinth exploration permit? Well, paladins don't need one. Are you for real? Oh dear, what a waste of 100,000 lire. Oh. Groaning, I fell to my knees. Not even the death penalty could do it, but this loss of money had made me collapse in an instant. Oh, I feel ya, pal. I feel ya. The shock was huge. If I had to gauge it, it was about 3 times worse than playing one of those retro RPGs, spending tons of time getting enough money to buy an iron sword. Only to get it from the next treasure chest you found. God damn it, that money is the equivalent of 1,000,000 yen. Filled it in too, so it's exclusive to me and I can't even resell it now. Why didn't my brother tell me about this? Well, I guess he would know, not being a paladin and all. As I kneel on the ground due to the shock, the soldier called out to me in a word tone. Oh, are you okay, sir? I know you're shocked, but nothing will come out of moping about it. Yeah, you're right. Time to get a grip. Yeah, I simply have to raid this dungeon with the intention of making up for the lost money. So, can I go inside? Yes, sir. Be careful, sir. The soldier spoke a spell that opened the gate. Beyond it, I saw a gloomy darkness and a staircase leading down. Well, let's go then. Onward. We both made our first step into the tomb labyrinth. My brother told me about the tomb labyrinth during a little break we had while we were buying my gear. Here's something to bear in mind. The largest dungeon in this country is inside the capital. He had just finished telling me about the beginner's hunting grounds surrounding the city, so this info was like a little bonus. Inside the capital? Oh, what do you mean? Barely a few dozen meters below us, there's a dungeon called the Tomb Labyrinth. And it's the largest one in the Kingdom of Altar. No, this whole continent. The Nemesis and I had stared darkly at the ground while we were standing on. It doesn't seem like Drive even needs to do anything for this country to be destroyed. Just bear with me here. The Tomb Labyrinth is a created dungeon. The monsters inside will never crawl out. You can be positive about that. Created dungeon? I repeated the unfamiliar term and my brother instantly began explaining it. Dendro has two fairly similar types of dungeons. You really like giving explanations, don't you, Aniki? The first type is a natural dungeon. It's used for places that weren't dungeons before, but that got the function due to various circumstances. The old orchard is a perfect example. He went on to add that natural dungeons also included dens created by intelligent creatures and fortresses felled by monsters. The other type is a created dungeon. Just as the name implies, there are places that were created for the sole purpose of being dungeons. Bear with me if I sound a bit meta here, but they're basically dungeons made by the devs. Oh. There are three main differences between natural and creative dungeons that you must always bear in mind. First of all, monsters in created dungeons never go outside. Well, that makes sense, living in the capital would be too dangerous otherwise. The second difference is that monsters automatically respawn regardless of any ecosystems and reasonable causes. The people of this world had realistic personalities and lives, and monsters normally weren't different in that regard. Since they adhere to proper ecosystems, they wouldn't simply appear with no rhyme or reason. Just as dead teens wouldn't come back to life, entire species of monsters could be made extinct. However, that didn't apply to created dungeons, where monsters respawned without limit. It was perfectly natural for there to be undead-type monsters despite the lack of corpses. The third difference is that every few floors you run into a boss monster that, along with its standard drops, gives you an additional reward. Unlimited monsters meant unlimited treasure. The rate of the drops increased the lower you went, and, in the deepest levels, items that could be sold for 1 million lire weren't uncommon. Dungeon was a real cornucopia. There are other created dungeons, but the one with the most bearable entry requirements is the Tomb Labyrinth. When you look at Dendro as a game, this is obviously the best reason to choose the Kingdom of Altar. After all, to get in, you only need to have a permit and be aligned with the kingdom. Just like the fertile land around these parts, it's one of the reasons why Drive wants to conquer this country. They can't let the Tomb of Labyrinth. They can't enter the Tomb Labyrinth until they do that, you know. Oh, so to Drive, the Kingdom of Altar is like a treasury with an endless supply of commodities, eh? But did you stay with the kingdom so you could raid the Tomb Labyrinth? Is this the reason why you didn't switch to the country you like once you got your suit? Well, I've barely been there. Not the reply I had been expecting. Why? Baldur's 5th and higher forms are too large to use in the dungeon. I had no words. The saying less is more crossed my mind. I didn't know if it fits this case, but it was clear. It was a clear example that there were pros and cons to everything. Holy crap. What kind of embryo is larger than a tank? You have a mech? Is it a mech? I bet it's a mech. And now Nemesis and I were exploring the very same dungeon, very same tomb labyrinth my brother and I had talked about. Since it was underground, I expected it to be pitch black inside, but it was actually relatively well lit. This was because the walls and ceilings were covered in luminescent minerals. That's radium, imagine. The labyrinth's hallways were quite wide, enough to let about 10 people walk side by side. The ceiling, however, wasn't too high. Just as my brother had said, it would get in the way of anything particularly big. I thought that simply breaking the ceiling would solve that problem, but my attacks couldn't even put a scratch on it. The dungeon was clearly indestructible. Despite having the eerie word tomb in its name, it's quite a clean dungeon. It's probably being cleaned automatically. I could only assume that, instead of realism, the main force at work in this dungeon was the will of the developers. I wasn't sure if I could handle a tomb, but if all of it is like this, then there's nothing to worry about. She was getting increasingly motivated. I'll split apart all the monsters this dungeon sends our way. I hate to rain on your parade, but the only monster type that spawns on this floor is undead. Huh? She let out an expression of shock and confusion. I pointed further into the hallway. Speak of the devil. Clad in tattered clothing, there was a person, or rather, a monster that looked like a person's bones. The fact that it was a monster was proven by the name above it. Civilian skeleton. And just as the name said, it was clearly the skeleton of a civilian, rather than that of a soldier or knight. It had no weapon, so it merely extended its empty hands and closed in on me while making a rattling sound. Due to infinite Dendrogram having such realistic graphics, the skeleton was quite a scary sight. The hints of red and yellow on the bones, likely left behind by dried bodily fluids, made the sight a bit too vivid and slightly unpleasant. Things like this make me wish I had chosen anime or CG as my visual setting. Despite the gross preference, Nemesis wasn't saying a word. Nemesis? More silence. She didn't respond at all. I guess she's trying not to think about anything. Yeah, after all, I was about to use her to attack it. Alright, let's do this, I said and brandished my greatsword. I had my reservations about attacking a person's bones, but since I had to, charged at the monster. My attack made the skeleton's arm and shoulder shatter into many pieces. I then swung towards its head with the flat of the greatsword. The skeleton's skull got easily pulverized, turning the monster into shining dust that vanished. Can't you do without making me touch it so much? Yeah, are you saying we have no means of fighting besides slashing and smashing? Yeah, I had no offensive magic, and Nemesis' only skills were the defense counter-absorption, and the counterattack vengeance is mine. Though I bought some consumable magic items, they were limited. Physical melee attacks are my only option with these enemies. That's true, but hard on my mental health. Well, at least we're fighting skeletons here, not anywhere else. By here, I was referring to the fact that we were in a created dungeon. The civilian skeletons here weren't actual remains of people, but monsters just made for the sake of being monsters. Even though they were eerie, they weren't haunted or anything. And when you think about it, these monsters are strangely sanitary. They even come out dry and fresh. That makes it a bit easier to bear. Good to know. Oh, there's another one. I cut my sentence short and could hear Nemesis gasp. The creature that had come from the corner of the hallway made us both lose our words. But just like the skeleton, it was an undead type monster. However, unlike the bare, bony frame before, this one was fatter. Well, that was because its bones were covered in rotten, maggot-infested flesh. However, the covering wasn't complete, and you could see yellow and dark red liquids dripping out of the places where its flesh was missing. Since my 5 senses in the games were about as strong as they were in reality, I could even smell the indescribably bad stench it was emitting. Above its head I could see its name, Wounded Zombie. And so the sight of the otherworldly, revolting creature that made the explorer cast D6 for a sanity check, and whoa, that thing is so grotesque it made my mind drift away into another game. D6 for sanity check? I just roll a D20. This is a bit much, honestly. Though I guess it's natural for an undead lair to have zombies right next to its skeletons. Unlike the skeleton from before, which had been silent except for the rattling, this zombie was closing in on us while groaning and splashing its fluids on the ground. It looks like we have another fight on our hands. Huh? Oh, wait! Are you seriously going to use me to cut that? Well, like I said, that's not a dead person, it's just a monster made for this dungeon. No, I don't care how I was born, I simply do not want to cut that. Nemesis. It looks like she really doesn't want to do this, though. I'll polish you when we get back, alright? So just bite the bullet for now. No! I raised Nemesis as high as the pitch of her scream and charged towards the zombie. Silent sniffling resounded through the hallways. The source was none other than Nemesis, still in my hand. She was weeping like some cursed weapon as I continued walking through the tomb labyrinth. Since we'd entered, we had defeated 12 zombies, 30 skeletons, and 5 monsters known as haunted spirits. That had gotten me 2 level ups, making me level 7. My total HP was now above 1,000. Rotten flesh. The maggots. Nemesis continued weeping. The battles with the zombies had taken a toll on her sanity. If there was a silver lining to this cloud of hers, it was the fact that the monster's corpses completely disappeared, leaving nothing but the drops. However, both Nemesis and I would look terrified. Would look terrible due to all the flesh and fluids covering us. Oh, I never expected you to be such a sadist. Hey, yeah, I didn't do that because I wanted to. It was necessary. I feel like you performed a strangely high number of full swings, though. It's just your imagination. Though, doing them had made me look like the villain from some splatter flick. Full swings with my greatsword had been extremely effective at shattering the fragile and dead around here. It had made me feel like I was in a Western action game. Also, although unrelated, the groans of the zombies had all been drowned out by Nemesis screaming whenever she had their scattered flesh on her. I eventually got used to it, making it much more like background music. Damn. You know, that last battle cost me half of my gems. The gem was an item type I had prepared for battles against spirits. As the name implied, spirits were ghost-like monsters that had the annoying property of being immune to physical attacks. Well, not only that, they also drained MP or SP instead of HP and had attacks that applied debuffs to their targets. I had no offensive magic, so I couldn't do much against them. And though Vengeance's Mind could harm spirits, it could only counter based on HP I had lost, not MP or SP. I was woefully unequipped to battle them. However, I read the wiki info on the Tomb Labyrinth and I had known I'd run into spirits here, so I'd been aware that I'd need countermeasures against them and bought the gems for this very purpose. When using a White Lance gem, when used, a White Lance gem would release a shining spear of holy magic, making it really effective against spirits. However, they could only be used once, and each cost a whole 1,000 lire. I had bought a total of 10, but the encounter so far had already cost me half of them. But there's a little problem. I wonder how much we will get for the drops we've gathered so far. She'd finished a thought in my stead. For one, it was clear as day that I had yet to gather even 10% of the money I spent on the gems. To be able to continuously hunt in this dungeon, I wanted to make up for the lire I had lost, but the returns were far too small. Zombies and skeletons dropped items such as tattered clothing or bone pieces, and I wasn't even sure if they could be exchanged for money. Spirits were even worse, since they didn't drop anything at all. If, at the very least, the monsters here had been animal type, I could have made some nice money selling their pelts and fangs. But, as things actually were, my wallet was in serious trouble. Let's try going a bit further. We didn't even find the stairs to the next floor after all. Maybe we'll find a treasure chest if we keep it up. Despite being in a dungeon, we'd yet to see a single one of those. Understood. By the way, Master. What? Once we're back, I will hold you to the word, and you will polish me. Well, yeah, sure. I guess the fact that the fluids and pieces of flesh disappeared didn't do much to better her mood. A few minutes later, we came across a set of stairs of the same design as those as the ones we had used at the entrance. Well, this seems to be like the head of the floor. No boss to be seen here. I was told that you encounter them every 5 levels. The floors in the tomb labyrinth came in sets of 5. The first 5 floors were haunted of undead monsters, and the 5th had an undead boss. Defeating it would open the labyrinth to the 6th floor, which was infested by an entirely different monster type until floor 10, and from there, the pattern seemingly repeated endlessly. The walkthrough site described floors until 415, which was in the domain of dragons. The boss on that floor was too strong for anyone to defeat, so anything beyond was simply called uncharted territory. The term wasn't appropriate though, since it would actually refer to the fact that no one among those managing the walkthrough site or contributing to the wiki had ever made past that floor. It was entirely possible that someone knew what was beyond floor 415, but kept it secret to have a little advantage. Man, I have absolutely no business pondering places can't even get to. I'll just leave for now, but man, what should I do about this dungeon's high cost and low rewards? As I got lost in thought, Nemesis called out to me, "Master!" The quiet voice was a signal for me to be cautious. What's wrong? Someone is coming up the stairs. Is it Rook? Is it going to be Rook? I instantly shifted my attention to the staircase. I strained my ears and could faintly hear the echoes of someone's footsteps as they went up the stairs. Monsters couldn't go between floors, so it was clearly a player. Done with their business here, someone was taking their leave by using the stairs. Strangely enough, however, there was only one set of footsteps. If someone had come here to explore the dungeon instead of, like myself, grinding levels in the lower level floors, they would surely come with a party. As I considered that, the footsteps suddenly stopped. A moment later, from the darkness below, something extended toward me. It was almost too fast for me to perceive. There was some distance between me and its source, so I could sense it coming. However, right when I came to realize what it was already right in front of me. The thing coming straight towards my face was an attack against me. Counter-absorption! Nemesis and I shouted, and something slammed against a newly created barrier of light. That something was a chain. Its end had the shape of a pyramid, though blocked by the counter-absorption barrier, continued applying an immeasurable amount of pressure to it. Made me fully aware that it could have pulverized my head in a single hit. Kono power! That was terrible. Kono power! Nemesis's voice made it obvious that it was hard to bear. She hadn't reacted like this when defending against the demi-dragon worm's attacks or the bullet monsters. That means this attack is far greater than those two. I can't take it. The barrier of light that had defended it against such powerful attacks began to crack, and a sudden turn of events. Right before the barrier shattered, the change returned to its source. We got a moment of reprieve, however. Such an action from this opponent could only mean one thing. They're going to attack again, prepare yourself. Just as she said that was preparing for a second attack, I hastily jumped back, creating some distance between us. What do we do now? We had one more counter-absorption to use, but that was the extent of it. We couldn't handle anything beyond the next attack. I got into a battle-ready posture and waited for the chain to come at us again. Some time passed and I grew confused. The next attack showed no sign of coming. I couldn't sense the chain coming, but I could hear the footsteps as the attacker resumed going up the stairs. Master, which do you choose? I instantly understood what Nemesis had in mind. There were only two options for me: to turn back around and run away, or to face whoever was coming up. If the first attack was anything to go by, the power difference between us was so great that I couldn't even hope to win. I had a feeling this person was stronger than the player killer we'd sworn to get revenge on. If it was possible, I didn't want to fight them, but the possibility of having that chain attack me from behind crossed my mind, rendering me unable to move from my battle-ready posture. If I can't move, running isn't even an option. Hesitant as I was, I couldn't expect either choice to bring me much success, so I could only go with a certain gamble. If he comes up, or when he comes up, I'll nullify his next attack, multiply all the damage he was supposed to give me, and launch a counterattack. I have no idea if I'll land the hit, or if it'll be enough to kill him, but it's my only chance. Knowing my thoughts, Nemesis readied herself and aligned her attitude with mine. The footsteps became louder, and sooner than later, the person was in sight. Oh, he looks fucking sick. It was a young man who looked several years older than me. Though he had a nice face, he looked as though he was glaring at something. I would have even gone as far as call him slit-eyed. His apparel was simply bizarre. Though the metal armor on his upper body was from the riot set, same as mine, for some reason or another his lower body was covered in a hakama. Then there were his metal greaves, 6 familiar chains, 3 in each hand, rings on all of his fingers, and a feathered hat on his head. But the most extreme article of clothing he wore was the blue long coat hanging on his shoulders. None of his clothes were strange by design, but the coordination between them resulted in something truly bizarre. It seemed like a generic case of I equipped only the highest quality items and ended up looking weird, that every gamer was familiar with. As a gamer. The reason I assumed the gear was high quality was simply because it looked masterfully made, even to my experienced eye. The man in strange clothing threw me a glance. So it was a person. And spoke up with a sigh. Ah. A moment later. I attacked you because I thought you were a monster. I'm so sorry. My bad. He bowed before me and apologized. Huh? Still in the room with the staircase, the strangely dressed man and I began having a little chat. Nemesis had returned to her human form. The room we were in was protected by a barrier item placed by the man that kept monsters at bay, so we were safe. The first thing I found out upon speaking to him was that he was not a PKer. Also, his mannerisms and the way he spoke gave me an impression that he was a reasonably good person. As for why the man would attack me... So you confused me with a monster, huh? Yep, I'm really sorry. As he'd been making his way up here, he had felt someone examining the hints of his presence. The light shining behind me had made my silhouette look inhuman, so just to be on the safe side, he had attacked me. I couldn't really blame him after all. In her black greatsword form, Nemesis would reach right up to my shoulder. My silhouette could easily look monstrous. Monster! My observation seemed to have quite a shock to Nemesis, but I chose to ignore it. So tell me, why are you going solo in such a shallow floor? Oh, I'm just leveling. Leveling? Why here, of all places? Your total level is 7, huh? Or shouldn't someone your level be leveling outside? It's both easier and more profitable. I know you were a paladin and didn't have to buy a permit, but still. I did have to buy one, though. I thought and lamented the fact that I wasted money once more. I also couldn't help but notice that he had been able to see my level. But didn't you know that no one can use the beginner's hunting grounds due to the terrorism there? Terrorism? Yes, player killers are terrorizing the beginner's hunting grounds around the capital. It's been going on for 3 in-game days now. I've been in this dungeon for 5, so I had no idea. He added that he didn't even check the internet for game-related news. I couldn't hold back my surprise. You've been in the Tomb Labyrinth for 5 whole days. What were you doing here? Just a little marathon. I wanted to see how far down I could go while playing solo. Then I simply came back up. Bit of a tryhard, isn't he? His gear and the power behind his attack were proof that his level was really high. Well, how did you get this time? I got to floor 418. Yeah, that's one more than my previous record. The young man had spoken a number that was nigh impossible to achieve. What? That was about the only way I could react. Even while in a party, the tough guys from the walkthrough site could only reach 415. It was quite hard to accept that he'd been able to go beyond where they'd gone and reach the uncharted ground while going solo. Anatawa. Nemesis asked for his name. Omae. Oh, and my name is Figaro. Figaro. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm Ray Starling, and this is my embryo nemesis, and as I introduced myself, I finally realized where I heard his name before. Figaro. Over Gladiator Figaro. That was the name of one of the sitting at the top of the Kingdom of Altair's duel rankings. Are you that Figaro? From the rankings? Yep, that's me. I go through lots of matches in the arena. Arena? Matches? Yep, the arena. In the kingdom. It's in Gideon, city of duels. When dueling in the arena, you won't die. But even when you're killed, you can even win money depending on the audience you pull. It's fun. Don't die, even if you're killed. But people die when they're killed. There's a magical field that makes it work that way. It's like a recreational activity with some betting on the side. There are some other tourist attractions and the town is always lively, so I recommend you visit it someday. I guess people's tendencies to cling to their desires is fully functional even when their country is on the verge of ruin. Gideon is not too far. You pass the mountain in the south. Oh, and right. If the terrorists are preventing the use of the beginner's hunting spots, then the southern mountain pass is blocked. Wow. The idea of there being less traffic there is troubling. Figaro fell silent, pondering something. Alright then, I'll do something about it. I also have to make up for the attack I did after all. I'll take care of the player killers in Southern Mountain Pass. Take care? How? Negotiation? The question mark behind that word was almost audible. You should be able to use the pass by tomorrow. So you just go get some levels and come over to Gideon. And most of the time you can find me there, or in this dungeon. Oh, okay. Alright, I'll be going then. Oh, you have this. Figaro reached into his bag and took out a small stone. It was a gem, like the ones I had used, but this one was of a different color and carried a different kind of magic. It's imbued with Escape Gate, a spell that lets you leave created dungeons. You get all the levels you can and use it to leave this place. Are you sure I can have this? Sure am. It's another thing I'm doing to make up for the attack I did. After all, it would have been really bad if I'd given a death penalty to a newbie like yourself. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was sincerely grateful. With this item, I could continue the hunt without having to think about the dangers I had faced on the way back. Yeah, Figaro is a good guy. A really good guy. Yeah, but man, you two are pretty good. You're pretty good. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, you were able to withstand my attack, weren't you? Well, yeah, but that's what our skill is. I wasn't talking about the damage. You didn't break when I came up the stairs. Didn't break? What does he mean by that? I'm fond of people who don't break. I like you. Hope we get to fight in the arena someday. That'd be nice. If, as Figaro had said, there was no death penalty there, I could act on my curiosity and fight him just to find out how strong the top of the rankings really was. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I'll dedicate this cleaning to the pleasures of the future. cleaning? Figaro stood up. See you later then. Instead of elaborating on the strange term. Oh, see you too. Oh, and thanks for the gem. With a bright smile on his face, Figaro waved us goodbye and left the room. Over-gladiated Figaro, huh? Not the kind of person I expected him to be. The same here. Yet based on what my brother said, I expected him to be more rebellious. He told me that the reason Figaro hadn't joined the war was because he wasn't interested in sloppy fights. That had made him sound really obstinate and rebellious, but upon meeting the guy, I could only assume that he had his reasons. Alright, let's get started then. We've got a gem that lets us leave this place with no problem. Let's go all out, eh? Yeah, let's do it. No undead can be as scary as that attack from before. Yeah, apparently that event had made her lose her sense of fear go numb. Or had made her sense of fear go numb. Perfect. We'll be able to progress at a faster pace. Up until that point, a part of me had been holding back, if for Nemesis' sake. Well, now I can turn this little adventure into a real splatter flick. Well, let's resume the hunt. Bring it on. Yeah, a few hours later, I was polishing Nemesis, still in her sword form as she silently wept. This continued until the break of dawn. It was 10 in the morning, the day after we explored the tomb labyrinth. It was time to check out. So I walked out of the inn while drowsily rubbing my eyes. The reason for my drowsiness was the fact that I had stayed up until dawn polishing Nemesis, who had still been asleep. Instead of being in her human or sword form, she was currently inside the crest of my left hand. Nemesis was outside of it most of the time, but for most people, embryos were something to be kept in their crests. That was obvious, of course. Otherwise, my brother would have to walk around with a Gatling gun in his hands or ride around in a tank. No, I would do that. That'd be sick. And that's something that had taken him away by the police for questioning. Nemesis' personality kept her outside most of the time, but now she was focused on sleeping inside the crest. Seems like the Rated 18 Zombie Fest took quite a toll on her mind. However, thanks to that, I had gotten to level 12 and gained 2 new skills. They were Paladin's Aegis and Instant Equip. Paladin's Aegis was an always active defensive skill. It was pretty good too, since it reduced all incoming damage, magic or physical, by a whopping 10%. Paladin simply wasn't complete without it, since it cost absolutely no MP. It was possible to just activate it and treat it as a passive skill. The other skill, Instant Equip, allowed the user to quickly switch to wielding another weapon from their inventory. There was no need to dig through the items in their 4D bag to find it. The skill wasn't unique to Paladins. Everyone who used any sort of weapon would get it sooner or later. There were downsides to both skills though. For example, Paladin's Aegis could only be used by jobs in the night grouping, while Instant Equip had a cooldown of 5 minutes. Well, it's not like I have a weapon I could switch to with Instant Equip. Nemesis wouldn't shut up about it if I did. I won't let you cheat on me with another weapon, Nemesis murmured in between her breaths. Is she talking in her sleep? The first thing I did once I went outside was search info regarding the player killings in the beginner's hunting grounds. Figaro had said that Sauda Mountain Pass would be open by now, but I had to confirm it for myself, and sure enough, the player killing terror in that area was over. In fact, it was disappearing in other areas too. Yeah, I can understand the south, but the others? It even included the place I had died at, Norse Forest. If the timing was anything to go by, the south had been taken care of by Figaro. But what about the others? As such questions went through my mind... Oh, Ray! Hey there! I turned to the familiar voice's source. It was coming from the front of the store next to the street. In a mere moment, I realized that it was Rook, the guy I'd met in one of the beginnings. The guy I'd met in one of the beginnings hunting grounds. Unlike last time, his graceful face wasn't covered in dirt, and he was smiling at me while, for one reason or another, wearing the uniform of a shop run by teens. Hello? Why are you wearing that? Oh, getting skills while working part-time. Apparently, the suitable job Rook had been diagnosed with and had chosen what was close to the merchant grouping. Due to that, he'd been able to learn various mercantile skills by working at shops. Just like me, he'd gained skills without having to rely on the hunting grounds. So what job did you pick? Pimp! Pimp? What, as in pimp? Why does that job even exist? And why is an underage boy able to get him taken? In fact, why is that his suitable job in the first place? My guess is that it's because he has a succubus with him. Oh, well, that makes sense. Look at those bright eyes of his, though. Does Rook even know what the word pimp means? What kind of skills do pimps have, anyway? I've got these ones so far, Rook said eagerly and showed me his skill summary. Wordlessly, both Nemesis and I ran our eyes for it. In conclusion, he was the true pimp. There was male temptation, a skill that charmed females and had a chance to tame monsters. Then there was female monster strengthening and female slave strengthening, which did exactly what the name said. I couldn't ignore influence either, which increased the rewards from doing work and made the whole picture look very master-oriented. The only normal skill among those was Insightful Eye, which seemed to have come off as an extra, but man, Charm is quite a scary debuff. According to the game's help files, it was a stronger form of the Confused debuff. Charmed creatures would protect the ones who charmed them and attack their enemies. Basically, it made them guard the enemy and fight their allies. Players weren't excluded from its effects either, the bodies would simply start moving on their own. There's a theme here, isn't there? I guess Pimp is a monster taming kind of job. Something like that, I guess. Women were a strange kind of monster after all. In exchange for him showing me his skills, I showed him mine too. Upon seeing my paladin's Aegis, an instant equip, Rook's eyes lit up. He yelled out, "That's so cool!" Why must such an earnest, good young boy be a pimp? Rook quit his part-time job position at the shop, so I waited for him to take care of whatever he needed to and then joined him for lunch. He had only been working there because of the player killing, so no one had had any problems with him quitting now that they were over. In fact, the owner thanked him. That was because, during the 3 days Rook had spent standing in front of the shop, they had gotten 5 times more customers than usual. One thing to note that all the new customers were women, Master and Tian alike. As we walked through the street, I could feel a lot of people staring at us. To be specific, the women around us were staring at Rook. Just look at that pretty boy. He's so cute I might faint. That's some amazing character creation skill. Wait, how do you even make a boy that pretty? He seems a bit too natural for it to be character creation. Hearing her comments made me throw a glance at him. When I had first met him, he just seemed like a pretty boy covered in dirt from battle. But now that he was clean, it was obvious that he was among the most handsome men in the world. It felt as though he had been the result of some miracle that had happened in his ongoing transition from boy to young man. The silver hair covering his head made him look like a fairy, representing the ephemeral nature of snow. Master? Is it just me, or is your description of his appearance better than the one you gave me when we first met? No comment. By the way, Rook, how much did you work on your character's appearance when starting the game? Oh, I changed my hair color. That's it? Yes. So a guy this handsome actually existed in reality, meaning that his embryo being Bobby and his job being pimp could all be attributed to him being handsome. I can only assume that the pimp industry is limited to handsome people. Well, what do you think his relationship with the blonde guy next to him? Well, I'd say they're doing it. Which one takes it? The blonde one. I think so too. The pretty boy's smile is that of a sadistic top. What the fuck? Exchange made a chill go down my spine. Hey, me too, pal. But I pretended not to hear it. Now that I think about it, I haven't seen Bobby yet. Where is she? Is she in the crest like Nemesis? Oh, Bobby is working part-time too. She's in the massage parlor nearby. Massage parlor? The implications of a succubus doing services made me imagine only the most indecent of things. However, once I got there, I became made aware that it was a wholesome place that didn't even need to operate from a back alley. Yep, it's a massage parlor, alright. Yes, what about it? Rook, I'm done with my job here. With perfect timing, Babby ran out of the massage parlor and stood right next to Rook. Oh, hello there, Ray. Hey there, Nemesis. Konnichiwa. It has been a while. Nemesis, who was no longer in the crest in my left hand, now stood beside me in her human form. With all of us back together, it was time for lunch. My brother had told me about a nearby shop, so I chose it simply because I had no reason not to. His recommendations rarely disappointed, after all. Yeah, as we dug into our meals, we continued exchanging information and chatting. Rook and Bobby spoke about their time working while I told them about the hunting grounds and the tomb labyrinth. I got a new skill today, Bobby announced. She had gotten a skill despite being away from Rook. Humanoid Guardian-type embryos were able to gain new skills by working, training, and learning while separated from their masters. Bobby's current setup had a skill called Lilim Temptation, which could charm males. It was the opposite of Rook's Male Temptation, which was effective against women. That name is not... When together they could charm both sexes, giving them a great advantage in countless situations. Another interesting skill she had was Lilim Drain, which allowed her to drain HP, MP, and SP from charmed enemies. As for the skill she gained in the massage parlor, it was Angelic Massage, which could take away the efforts of exhaustion. Oh, I bet it could. Oh, yeah. By the way, Nemesis' skills got me curious. Can she use Counter Absorption and Vengeance's Mind when she's all by herself? Yeah, that was a good question. You know, I could recall her having used Counter Absorption of her own volition. But about Vengeance? I cannot use Vengeance by myself. It can only be used when I become a weapon and get equipped. Oh, I see. Naruhodo. Understanding, according to Nemesis, Counter Absorption was closer to a Guardian-type skill, while Vengeance's Mind was more of an Arms-type ability. Guardians had autonomy, but Arms and Chariots had a lot of skills which could only work when they're equipped. It just hit me that I asked to see your skills but didn't ask for your levels. What is it now? He hasn't been able to grind much these past few days, so if our last meeting was anything to go by, he should be at about level 5. Well, I'm level 25. 25? That's more than double my level. How? Where did you raise your level? The hunting grounds weren't an option, so... Oh, I don't think he could even get that many levels, even if he could use hunting grounds. Yeah, I couldn't go hunting, but I got lots of XP for completing a Pimp Guild quest. Pimp Guild quest? I hadn't even been aware of it, but taking a job unlocked quests from the guild that particular job grouping. And clearing them rewarded the player with experience. However, with the exception of those given to non-battle jobs, most of the quests and guilds required the player to defeat or defend something. So newbies like myself couldn't do much there. Hell, I'm a paladin. high-rank job, so it's probably even worse for me. I see, but a job that only a pimp can do? Is there anything in that vein that isn't rated 18? Oh, the one I cleared was the quest to find a model for a painting. Here's a copy. Oh, let's see here. Maestro Grancian Valeno. Looking for a model. Difficulty level 6, one of the Kingdom of Altair's greatest artists. Grancian is looking for a model for a new painting. Please bring someone that he would be satisfied with. Depending on the model, they might be asked to pose nude. Be advised that Grancian is a fastidious sort, and that his standards are sky high. I had no words. Difficulty of this quest was actually a level higher than the one where I had to help Milian. So you went and cleared it by showing Babby to him, right? No, well, that was my original intention, but... Pardon the intrusion, I am Rook from the Pimp Guild, and I came here with a model. Another one of you useless cretins who are only good at handling your crutches. All you wretches ever bring me are atrocious acts, so where is the... Is anything the matter? You're hired. Well, for some reason, I had to be the model. Well, I got some levels, and it made Mr. Grancian happy, so I didn't mind it at all. I see. Good for you. Man, this world is really kind to handsome people. Well, to be fair, Ray. In what world? Isn't it, huh? Yeah, by the time we'd finished our lunch, my exchange with the Rook was nearing its end. I thought I'd gotten some strange experience since I'd started the game, but his adventures had been quite something too. I had no idea if we were unique in that regard, or if getting entangled in unusual events was the norm in this world. By the way, Ray... What? Nani? We just talked about the player killers, and there's something I can't get out of my head. Probably the same thing I'm interested in. When you met Figaro, he said he would do something about the player killers in the south, right? But yeah, he said something about the hunting ground there being the passage to the city of duels. But the player killing is over in all the hunting grounds, isn't it? Well, exactly. That had been that question on my mind before I'd even met up with her. There would have been no surprise if Figaro, the top of the duel rankings, had ended the player killings in the hunting grounds. Yeah, in fact, if he'd simply given them all the death penalty, the player killings wouldn't be happening for a whole 3 days. However, Figaro had only mentioned the Southern Mountain Pass in the south. Therefore, it was strange that the player killings in other places were over too. I have 3 possible scenarios in my mind. Oh, do tell! Scenario number 1. Figaro did something about the other 3 as well. This scenario is quite unlikely though. He'd probably be taking care of the southern player killers to secure the means of travel between the capital and the city of duels, his main haunt. However, he had no reason to take care of the problems in the other areas. Scenario number 2, upon finding out that someone took care of the player killers in the south, the others ceased their activities as well. This one seems a bit questionable. Sure, getting killed would disable the player killer's activity for 3 whole days here, but this particular event was organized terrorism meant to prevent Kingdom of Altair's players from growing stronger. From the way they'd steal all 4 sides of the kingdom, it was obvious that they were acting as one. Due to that, it was hard to believe that they'd stop just because one side got neutralized. Yeah, in fact, I would expect them to make up for the loss by sending over some of the killers from other areas. But suddenly another possibility came to mind. What if the countermeasures Figaro took aren't as small-scale and haphazard as I think they are? But what if he actually negotiated with the player killers? Well, if that was the case, it was no surprise that all the player killings had stopped. However, that's quite a questionable assumption too. Figaro was a good guy. He didn't seem like the type to act like that. I didn't talk to him for long, but the impression he gave me didn't seem to fit that scenario. After all, he almost killed me just because he couldn't see what I was. That brings him closer to Musclehead territory, or just makes him seem like a person who is rough in the way he operates. Ray, what's the third scenario? Oh, I got lost in thought. After a short process of elimination, I voiced the third possibility. Scenario 3. At the same time as Figaro was doing his thing in the south, the other places were taken care of by other people. If Figaro wasn't the one who taken care of them all, and if the others had just backed down, it could only mean that someone else had gone to the other hunting grounds at the same time as him. Well, after all, there were player killers, so there must have been many people who wanted them gone. But therefore, it was fair to assume that someone had gone to take care of them at about the same time as Figaro. I felt it reasonable to believe that the single cause led to a coincidence in timing. Synchronicity. Synchronicity. Yeah, that sounds better. A synchronicity of sorts. And you are completely right. A familiar voice broke in. It was way too sudden. Before I realized it, a woman I didn't know was sitting down at our round table, on a chair between myself and Rook. Despite her being right next to me, I hadn't noticed her at all until she began speaking, which was odd. Because her appearance was strange and unique, making it nigh impossible to ignore her presence. Her hair was black, and long enough to cover her neck, while her face was that of someone around my age. But neither of those points were what made her seem strange. All of her oddity was in her apparel. However, the reasons were completely different from Figaro's. That guy had clothes befitting a fantasy nature, but there were no uniformity in his overall appearance. This woman's clothing, however, was completely uniform. It just happened to be a men's business suit that didn't fit the fantasy setting at all. Not only that, but her eyes were covered by a pair of sunglasses. I wouldn't have found her appearance the least bit weird if we had been in reality instead of the game, though, yeah, in reality it'd be pretty strange to wear sunglasses indoors. Yeah, only douchebags do that. You are... Oh, do forgive me. I found your conversation so interesting that I couldn't help but join in. This is who I am. Yeah, as I noticed as she was talking in a slightly tomboyish way, she took out a business card, which was actually just a status window with her name, job, yeah, etc., but whatever. Her name was Mary Adler, and she is a journalist belonging to the company known as DIN. The existence of the job pimp is surprising enough, and now I run into a journalist. This game sure has great job variety. What's DIN? It's short for Dendrogram Information Network. Some call us newspaper reporters, however, when we want to sound cool, we like to go for Intelligence Agency Without Borders. We gather information from countries all over and sell it to other countries. Oh, what a fucking scumbag. Is that a safe thing to do in this current environment? The kingdom was at war with a neighboring country. People who could leak info to the enemy seemed like prime candidates for arrest. Well, we have many DIN fans in the upper echelons of every country. Though I'm just an underling, so I specialize in info for citizens and masters. Any examples? For the citizens, we recently took photos of and wrote about the pandas that were breathing so much and that they covered the entire mountain at Hongkwe. Oh yeah, I saw that in the message boards. Yeah, as for masters, we recently gathered info about the player killers that were terrorizing the kingdom of Altair's surroundings. She looks kinda cool. she handled info like that, she might know how it all played out and ended. You said he was completely right. Do you know the truth behind the event? Do you want to know? 600 lire per area, please. You can also buy the info on all 4 of the places at once for 2,000. I see. So she only appeared before us to sell some info. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm interested in what happened, so... I'll pay. Ah, Ray! Let me pay half of the money. We both gave 1,000 lire each. Thank you for your business. I'll start with the conclusion. The player killers who occupied the hunting grounds around the capital city of Altia have now been completely annihilated. Oof, now that's a rough word. Annihilated. Almost all of the player killers in the hunting grounds are on their death penalty now. With something so extreme happening, I don't think they're going to do this dirty work again. Some of the relevant clans might even split up. Work? Clan? Oh, forgive me. The player killer group responsible for this event was actually a union between several player killer clans. The union. I was told it wasn't a solo effort, but an actual union between player killer clans. Wait, yeah, our country actually has enough player killer clans to create a union? That's fucked up. Yes. Easter Plains at the south was occupied by KNR. Souda Mountain Pass to the south was occupied by Mad Castle. West Sea route to the west was occupied by Goblin Street. These 3 clans were responsible for the recent player killings. The 2 of those names sound really villainous. They probably chosen them on purpose. But what about the north, though? That's the one that's most important to me. As for their motives, apparently they did it because someone hired them to do the killing. Was it drive? The question made her slightly raise her arms and shake her head. That's the rumor, but we at DIN don't have any conclusive proof of that, so I can only say that, well, I don't know. Well, as things are now, the only one who could be happy about our tower being damaged in such a way are Drive. A country we're at war with, so it's quite likely, though it does seem a bit too direct. From their perspective, it's probably just an attractive scenario where they get some extra rewards for their player killing by merely switching their hunting grounds. But the world wasn't too kind for them. They were annihilated by a certain 4 masters. Or just 4 masters had destroyed the entire player killers in all 4 areas? Is that even possible? Well, yeah, I guess. The south made sense considering Figaro was involved. With that in mind, the other hunting grounds had been... yes, it was made possible by the work of the other 4 superiors loyal to the Kingdom of Altar. They were the ones who exterminated all the player-killer clans. Superior. That's a decent supermarket. That was the term used to describe the ones who had made their embryos evolve to the final, 7th form. They were the elite of the elite amongst players, and the total number of them didn't even cross 100 yet. King of Destruction, the Unknown. Figaro, the Endless Chain, Tsukuyo Fuso of the Lunar World, and Lele, the Protocol for Feasts. They all went to separate hunting grounds and exterminated all the player-killer clans occupying them. Oh, but Tsukuyo Fuso had her clan with her. Oh. But Figaro's nickname is Endless Chain, huh? Or is it because he uses chains? Also, is the King of Destruction's nickname seriously just Unknown? What the hell? I don't even know his name, so he could be a serious weirdo. Now, take a look here. Mary took out a crystal ball and placed it on the table. Yeah, what's this? Well, it's basically an item to display visual media. It shows what you record on magical cameras. Magical cameras? Well, it's obviously a camera that works magically, but I can't help but wonder if the devs think anything goes as long as you put magic next to it. Due to all the recent happenings here in the Kingdom of Altar, we at DIN increased the numbers of secret I mean information gathering equipment we placed here. Illegal spying, huh? Some of them happen to film the end of these terror events. This thing has it all in full detail. She activated the crystal ball. Since you two were talking about it, let's begin with a look at the south, where Figaro, the endless chain, went.